Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 4 of the March Facebook Live event, in which we're going to be talking about organizing and decluttering and systems and habits to get organized. My name is Shannon Graham-Cornell, and I'm with Better Home Organizing at betterhomeorganizing.com. So thanks so much for joining. We're going to pick up from where we left off yesterday, and that was talking about the 4 tendencies framework that author Gretchen Rubin developed a year or so ago. And she's an author. If you don't know her, she's an author who focuses on writing about habits, happiness, human nature. And in one of her books on how to make and break habits, called Better Than Before, she started talking about this concept of the 4 tendencies framework. And today we're going to focus on the first of those 4 tendencies, which is the upholder tendency. So we want to focus today on what the upholder tendency is, and in particular focus on what are some strategies that really appeal to upholders in order to get them organized or inspire them to get organized. Also, we're going to talk about it from the perspective of what if you're not the upholder, but you're trying to inspire an upholder to start organizing as well. So we're going to look at it kind of from both sides of the equation there. So I want to start off just by doing a really quick recap of the 4 tendency framework. If you didn't watch yesterday's Facebook Live, or where I did a full explanation of the tendencies, you can go back and listen to that if you want to hear about the rest of some more specifics about some of the other tendencies. But I just want to do a quick recap here. So the 4 tendency framework is a very specific framework, personality framework, that really targets one aspect of our personalities, which is how do we respond to expectations. And in this framework, Gretchen Rubin identifies 2 types of expectations that we all face. One is external, so a job deadline, reading for a book club, and then internal expectations, starting a new habit, working out at the gym, or doing a New Year's resolution, those kinds of things. So essentially, what are the expectations that people have of us, and what are the expectations we have of ourselves? So those are the internal and external expectations that we all face. For the different tendencies in this framework, each tendency has a different mixture of how they respond to internal and external expectations. So the 4 tendencies are the upholder, and the upholder responds equally readily to internal and external expectations. The key question for the upholder is, should I do this? Whether that's an internal or an external expectation, should I do it? If the answer is yes in either case, then that's something that they'll do. For the questioner, which is the second tendency, the questioner really makes everything into an internal expectation, because they evaluate an external expectation, an external request, and if that request passes their standard for, is this efficient? Does it make sense for me to do this? Is this something I should do? Is there a good reason why? Then they will take it on and they will do it. But they're essentially making everything an internal expectation. So for them, the key question is, does this make sense for me to do this? The third type, or the third tendency, is the obliger. And the obliger is the type that really struggles with internal expectations. They hardly ever even try anymore to make a New Year's resolution because it's really hard for them to stick to it. But they are the workhorses when it comes to the external expectation. They are great about getting other things that people want of them done. They're great about getting those things done. So the key question for the obliger is, does this matter to anyone else? And if the answer is yes, then no problem. They've got it covered. The fourth type is the rebel. And the rebel has issues with both internal and external expectations. They don't want to be told either by anyone else or by themselves what it is that they need to do. So the key question for the rebel really is, does doing this thing mean that I'm the person I want to be? That's key for the rebel. So that's a quick recap of the four different tendencies, and what their key questions are. But for today, I want to talk in more depth about the upholder. So these are the people that are readily respond to both internal and external expectations, and talk about some of the strategies that really work best for them in terms of helping them get going with being inspired to organize. So the first one that I want to mention is this idea of clarity. Clarity is great for upholders. And what I mean by clarity is you want to have a very specific goal for the space that you're organizing. Having a thought or a statement like, I want to get organized, isn't all that helpful because it's not very specific. You want to be as specific as possible. So rather than, I want to get organized, really what's going to work really well for an upholder is, I want to get my spare room organized. Right now it is serving as a storage room, and I want to turn it into a guest room and a home office. So what I really need to do is go through all of the items that I'm storing in that room and make decisions about what I want to keep, and the things I want to keep from that room, I'm going to put in bins in the garage, on the shelving out there. And then the things that I want to donate, I want to take to my church auction. And then everything else, I'm going to hire one of the junk hauling companies in my area to come and haul away whatever's left that can't be salvaged. So that's a much clearer goal, much more specific for your space. And the good thing about that is once the upholder has that in their mind, it becomes much, much easier for them to take direct action to fulfill that internal expectation that they've now created for themselves. It's just really too easy to not really do anything with, I want to get organized, because it's just not specific enough. It's too vague. So this also works, by the way, if you're not an upholder, but you're needing an upholder to help you with that project. Let's say that a lot of the stuff that's in that storage room is your spouse's or your kids, and you need them to help you with this project. A really good way to use that same strategy of clarity for them is to share your vision. And maybe not all of the tasks that you've identified or all the things that you've identified, but let them know what done looks like. Let them know, so that they have a very clear vision of what their role in achieving that vision of yours could be. So, there's 4 boxes of things that are in the room that are your partners, and that they all need to be distributed or donated or whatever that might be. Get very specific with them about your vision so they can see it as well, and what their part of that vision is. And then again, what done looks like, especially with kids. If you tell them, organize that space, they may just hide places and not actually really do it to your standards. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Be specific with them. Tell them what done looks like. The next strategy or next tactic that works really well for upholders is upholders are the masters of the to-do list. To-do lists are key for upholders. They really like, if you put it on a list, they enjoy crossing it off. It motivates them, it energizes them. They get excited about marking things off as done. Some upholders will even go back and write things down on their to-do list that they've already done for that day so they can just cross them off. So to-do lists are great. So if you've got an organizing project, go through and make a list of all of the tasks that you need to get done in order to meet your goal. And that, depending on the size of your project, that task list and put those things, on your to-do list. But that task list may be too big if it's, a big project, like the example I gave of the storage room. You're not going to be able to get that done in one day. So have a master task list and then use, the first 3 to 5 things on that task list, put those on your to-do list for today. And then tomorrow, put the next 3 to 5, and so on until you get the project done. So leverage that to-do list to help you move the project forward. But I wouldn't recommend putting everything on your to-do list, because you as an upholder feel like you need to get everything done that's on that to-do list. And so be realistic with yourself. I mean, just unless you've cleared your day to organize, you may not have time to get everything done. So don't terrorize yourself by putting things on a to-do list that you can't possibly get done in one day. Use your master task list to seed your to-do list. The same thing in terms of if you're working with an upholder, they may already have a to-do list. So figure out what are some of the things that they're using for their own lives. So figure out what are some of the things that make sense for you to delegate off your master task list to suggest to them. And then they can put those things on their to-do lists and get those done. It's really helpful. It's very difficult to actually get to actually organize somebody else's stuff. So look at the things on your to-do list that need someone else to take action on, to make decisions on. It's one thing, like as a professional organizer, I can do a lot of moving around of things and sorting, categorizing, getting things ready for someone to make a decision on, but the homeowner has to be the one to make the decision. So use that same practice when you're working with your upholder partner or child, when there is something that you need to delegate to them for their to-do list. What are the things that they need to make decisions on, and give them those things. The third strategy that I want to mention is scheduling. Again, putting something on a calendar or as a calendar item, scheduling time is magic for an upholder. So once it's on the calendar, it'll get done. So you've got your clarity of your vision, you have your master task list. Now you can schedule some time in your day or your weekend or your evening to actually start working on the project. So add it to your calendar, and that can really make all the difference. It also works when you're working with an upholder that you can leverage that with them as well. Make a date with them. So if it's your spouse, say, I'd really like to organize some of the stuff or go through some of the stuff in the storage room today or that spare bedroom today. Can we make a date of it on Saturday morning? Spend a few hours working together, and then that way it's actually, and you can then add it to the calendar, and that way it's more likely to get done. I will say that there is one thing about the upholder that I want to mention here at this point is upholders are really good at balancing external and internal expectations. They're really good at being able to take care of both things. So if you, and that actually is good, that's a protective measure for themselves, in that because they're very good at taking care of their own needs as well as taking care of other people's needs, they're not going to sacrifice themselves or their own needs if somebody else needs help. So they're going to be able to better handle balancing that. So where you may get pushback from an upholder on the scheduling thing is if they already have something on their schedule and what you're asking them to do conflicts with what it is they're doing. So for example, let's say your partner is training for a marathon and they run for 4 hours every Saturday morning. They're probably not going to set that aside to help you with the organizing of the spare bedroom, because they already have their internal expectation that they're going to go running for 4 hours on Saturday morning. So in that case, just be aware of that and offer up a different time. And then the last one is pairing. So this is the idea where you take an activity that you already either do because you enjoy it, or it's a habit that you've already formed, and you attach an organizing task to that activity. So it may be that you say, all right, from now on, and upholders are really good at making rules for themselves to follow. From now on, when I listen to my favorite podcast or I watch my favorite TV show, I'm going to go through a box of the stuff in that spare bedroom. So I don't get to listen to my favorite podcast. I don't get to watch my favorite show unless I am also sorting through at least one box of stuff from that room. So that's a really good strategy for an upholder, that idea of pairing, because it really sets, again, an internal expectation. We're leveraging the internal expectations in order to get the organizing task moving forward. And then if you're working with an upholder and you want to, again, try to inspire them to get organized, and you want to leverage pairing, consider pairing the organizing activity that you want them to do with something fun. So maybe it's our favorite movie that we've seen 900 times. We don't really need to pay attention to every scene or every piece of dialogue. So we can, while we're doing that, we can sort through boxes, and that'll be a lot of fun, and we can do it together. Or, hey, let's do a wine and cheese and organizing party, and we can, can pair our organizing activity with something enjoyable. So that's a good, a good way of leveraging the pairing concept. So those are kind of 4 different strategies that can work either for you if you're an upholder and you're looking to get yourself motivated to organize, or if the person in your life that you need to have help you with organizing is strategies that may work for them as well. So again, clarity, so getting super clear on what it is your goal is for the space, creating to-do lists from a master list and divvying those up for each day, scheduling, putting time on the calendar, and then pairing, putting it together with something fun, something you enjoy doing, something that makes it a little more palatable. I do have a couple of caveats for these. So even though you may have taken the quiz or you may have listened to the summary of the 4 tendencies from yesterday's podcast, and you may think, yep, I'm definitely an upholder, but you know what? The to-do list thing just doesn't work for me. It may not. I mean, again, the framework is looking at one very narrow aspect of our personalities, but our personalities are so much richer than just what our reaction to an expectation is. So, the same person, an upholder could look very, very different depending on the other aspects of their personality. But these are 4 that typically will work well for the upholder tendency. So try these first, but it certainly doesn't mean that they will 100% work for sure, or it also doesn't mean that there aren't other things that won't work well. So just keep that in mind, that these are good ones to try. They're more likely to work for you as an upholder. And then the other thing, and I mentioned it a little bit before, we were talking about getting others to organize and making decisions about their own things. You can't make somebody else get organized. So even if you have an upholder that really doesn't want to get organized, no, you really can't make them do it. I mean, you can try to inspire them for sure, but getting organized is something that you have to have their buy-in for. You can't, declutter somebody else's stuff. It is a really bad idea. So, doing it, except for like your little itty bitty kids. I mean, you can declutter for them. But in terms of, older kids or your partner, you don't want to be throwing away their things or donating their things. So you do, definitely, you can't make somebody get organized, but hopefully some of these tips will help in getting them inspired to do so. So I just want to throw those out there just as some important caveats for this. So that is it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And as we talked about upholders and the strategies that we can use to help upholders get motivated to organize. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about the questioner tendency. So these are the ones, these are the folks that make everything about the internal expectation. Every expectation has been run through their personal, does this make sense filter. So we're going to talk about techniques that work to motivate them for tomorrow. So I would love to hear, if you are an upholder or you have an upholder in your life, I would love to hear in the comments strategies that have worked. Have you tried any of these strategies? Either for an organizing project or anything else? Because by the way, if a strategy works for any other type of activity that you want to inspire yourself to do, it'll probably work for organizing also. But share in the comments if you've tried anything, any of these, or other ones that you've tried that have really worked for you. I'd love to hear hear your comments on that. So again, thank you everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.